Isn't it so beautiful? Just the falling leaves. Such a nice new tree. I know people generally don't like retroactive change, but wouldn't it be neat if they did add these features to the older trees? Just green falling particles that match the texture color of the leaves. So brown in, say, the deserts, lime green or dark green here, jungle, etc. I think it'd be a neat change. Anyway, so we're here on, I'm just going to call it 1.20. They've announced the features, what I assume is going to be all the features. So we've got cherry biome, cherry tree biomes, cherry blossom biomes, whatever you want to call it. The new armor sets and trims, and then archaeology. Not too impressed with that one. And of course the sniffer, as well as a few back-end changes, which are really good for people like me who like to make maps and play with commands. But yeah, so since they've sort of pushed it all to the experimental branch, if you will, of the snapshots, I think we'll just go through each thing, and I've got a little bit to say on all of them. Some of it's going to be good, some of it's going to be bad. Yeah, I know. Before we get to it, nice sunset. I'm curious. If you're listening to this, what's your view on Minecraft? Because to me, I've always viewed it as a sandbox adventure RPG. So to me, it needs functionality. The armor sets are great, cosmetics are, neat, but I would like to see functionality. I'd like to see more adventure and actual action features rather than just stuff to collect and do nothing with, essentially. But anyway, we'll take a look at the changelog. We'll go over, I think it's 27A, the snapshot currently, which is the sniffer, cherry biomes, and archaeology, and then we'll just pick apart the features one by one. Right, so here we are. Let's open the patch notes. This week we're bringing the sniffer, archaeology, and cherry blossom biomes as experimental features for 1.20. Then, of course, changes for 1.19.4 include all of the normal stuff that they've been slowly listing, and I don't know how to feel. I think a lot of people will view, 1.20 as this big adventure update where there's all these new things to do out in the world to explore and experience. And to me, it's honestly more of a command update where they're changing and adding in all these great features to the back end of Minecraft that really excels if you utilize it for map making. Because I gotta honestly say, archaeology as it is now is just dog shit. Like, it is horrible. I don't see anyone doing it long term, and we'll go on why after we go through the patch notes. Because yeah, I got a lot to say about archaeology. It's got some great avenues for map makers like me, but as a feature, it is terrible. So changes: jukeboxes have changed to be parity with Bedrock, texture, sounds. Curious about that. Horse breeding has been updated. This is another great one. We'll probably skip to that. So, when breeding horses and the like, the baby's speed jump, so I'm going to assume like means donkeys and mules, the baby's speed, jump heights, and health are no longer based towards the average. Rather, it is, more variable, more able for you to actually scale it up properly once breeding, so allow you to get to the top end of horses a lot easier. And I can't wait to see what Etho does, because he's got a few videos where he just tries to absolutely soup up his horses through breeding, and this is going to be a huge change for him. The jukebox thing. While playing a music disc, if it will emit a redstone signal of 15, droppers and hoppers can now interact with it. Okay, so that's good to see. You can now use it for redstone, and you can set up auto disc players, if you will. So I guess you just detect when the signal stops, and then you load up your next disc. Take a hopper to bring it out, and then drop it to put it in. Recipe unlocks. The crafting table recipe is unlocked immediately on Crafting New World. I'm curious about this. I don't feel there is a huge number of new players coming into Minecraft. I would honestly expect anyone who sort of picks up the game now has a fair understanding about it, because it's not the type of game you just stumble across and play. It's you're exposed to it through someone or something, and you generally have a decent idea of the game yourself. It's not this big, AAA release where everyone's rushing to find and discover everything. The crossbow recipe is no longer unlocked by sticks. Sulfide campfire is also no longer unlocked by sticks, because they're a bit too early, because you need a few extra things. I don't actually know how to craft a crossbow, interestingly. Okay, so technical changes. This is really the big thing, because almost every patch note has had some pretty great technical changes. So, the vanilla resource pack language, nope, that's not what we want. New recipe sterilizer, so you can sort of modify the crafting decorated pots and do all the data packy shenanigans. Okay, interaction entities. A new type of entity that records attacks. So you no longer have to use scoreboards. So this is a great one. So you can detect when a player left clicks and when a player right clicks. And this is all part of their new non-entity entities. So like markers, all these things that can be used by map makers or people who play with commands to detect all different variables without actually causing server load or lag. And it's just a great thing to see, because currently I use the scoreboard trick where you create a scoreboard and then you instantly reset it after the player, attacks something, deals damage. Right click you can't actually do. You can do like breaking a block or blocking, but or placing, something specific. But now you can just detect when they do either of these functions, and that's really good. It's honestly a huge change for map making. It will streamline a lot of sort of command development, and will allow for almost a new innovation in that field. It's sounding so techy at the moment. Okay, advancement triggers. Interacting with an interaction event trigger and attacking in interaction event trigger. So you can now, tie your custom advancements to these interaction entities. Pretty decent. Again, this is the types of things that I don't want to go too in depth with, because a lot of people honestly don't care, but why this set of updates is so geared towards map makers and command blockers. Okay, so the experimental features. On to the good stuff. Sniffer. Sniffer mob, now available as an experimental feature. I did not expect him to be as big as he is, surprisingly. Okay, so Sniffer cannot be tamed, passive, friendly mobs, and they sniff the air and occasionally dig for seeds. Really, you want this over the golem? The golem just had so much more utility. Torch flowers now available. Torch flowers seeds can be planted on farmland, grow into flowers, and they can be used to breed sniffers. Not that you can do anything with them, because you can't ride them, you can't tame them. Why? I mean, this will never outcompete a flower farm. It's just a cool utility. I guess you come across this big lug, and you can use them to get extra seeds that are not really useful. And this is honestly my whole theme and issue with the stuff they've been adding lately is, you take that ally, great, has so much functionality, and then you have this sniffer. We get a flower that doesn't really have any benefits. It looks pretty. It's quite different from their usual flowers, but it has no extended utility after that. I'm honestly really hoping I'm underestimating them, and that both Archaeology and the Sniffer are not released as they are currently. And by that I mean Archaeology needs a lot more items to make it worthwhile. The 4 different shards and their combinations are not a fantastic idea, simply because the pots and their rotation, if you use it as a wall, you've only got 2 sides showing. You use it as a decoration. Most likely you have it up against a wall. So to have 4 sides is not always utilized. And then as for the sniffer, if it's just one new plant, that is just really, really disappointing. Cherry Grove biomes. Back to something great. So add a new Cherry Grove biome with pretty cherry blossom trees, a whole new set of woods, and a new color palette for builders. So that's great. And you can find it in mountains like meadows. I didn't think meadows were mountains. Interesting. And then, of course, the blocks it adds, so pink petal blocks, which is all that's the clutter on the ground, which is quite nice. I wish sort of all the trees had these little flowers or petals that they sort of dropped off. I know, obviously, the consensus is a lot of trees aren't flowering trees, they're just leafy trees, but you can come up with something, surely. Cherry wood set, so we'll take a look at that in a second. And then, Archaeology. The brush is a craftable item you can use to brush things. And by things, I mean suspicious sand. Desert temples and desert wells now contain suspicious sand. This fragile block is hard to spot and easy to destroy, so be careful. If you don't brush it, it just breaks. Brushing suspicious sand with a brush will extract objects that were buried long ago, of which there are 5. 4? I don't know if there's normal pottery shards. I know there's the 4 decorative ones. Pottery shards have pictures on them. They cannot be crafted and only found in suspicious sand. So this is the gameplay loop. And the payoff is decorated pots. Crafting 4 pottery shards together will create a decorated pot with pictures on each side, depending on which, of course, pottery shards you use. So you can combine them. That's great. There is what? 4 factorial times 4. Is that how it works? Because each slot can occupy 1. So 4 by 3 by 2 is 6. I don't know. There's a lot of combinations for just pots. Of course, it doesn't really matter because if you stick them on a wall, only one side is really facing forward. And that's the only one you really care about. Where are we up to? Smash a decorated pot with any block breaking tool to break it apart and get a pottery shard. Great. Or hit it with your fist to pick up the pot without breaking it. And what do these pots do? They do nothing. You can put a flower pot on top of them and then put a flower in that pot. But these pots have no use other than being decorated. My huge issue with this, when they add a new decorative block, it automatically has a wide range of uses because you can build with it. You can do floors, walls, roofs. You can use it as scenery or patterns or build pictures with it. But a pot you cannot. A pot does not do anything. It just sits there. I like this update. It has a lot of... It's probably the most balanced update in the fact that it adds all these different avenues, new biomes for anyone who's a builder or explorer, archaeology, a new feature for people to play with and get bored of super quick, Snipper, a new mob. It's always great to see a new mob. I hate that they make us pick one of 3. They should just do all 3. And it's just, we pick whichever one comes out first. It's not a huge hassle to build a mob. You can take a look at all the different mods that add them. You have a basis of a lot of different creatures. For instance, the animations and the triggers will probably be tied to something like the goats or the sheep that, gnaw on grass. I can't imagine it takes so much time and effort to create one mob out of 3 that they can't do all 3. Anyway, that's the patch notes. Very jaded, so if you don't like that, too bad. I'm here to critique and criticize, because that's what I like to do. I like to understand why something was chosen over something else and rationalize it. And to me, these were not good choices. But we'll get into why in the next one. We'll probably split up and do a video on each thing. I'll definitely have good stuff to say about the cherry biome. I've already done armor. The snipper, if I were to rank these, along with the armor is definitely top, then cherry grove, then sniffer, and then archaeology would be mountains below. Like way, way down. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed nonetheless. And I'll give you a bit more in-depth views once we actually go through archaeology.